had a long talk, all right? And basically, he's retiring, and he's handing me over the company, so I am your new boss. Is that hard for you guys to understand?
Operation Repo ran for 11 seasons, built a bilingual fan base that was genuinely passionate about it, and ended in 2014 without most people realizing it would be the last time they saw these faces on television. Then, in May of 2023, fans went online and found news that stopped them cold. Sonia Pizarro, the woman who became the face of the entire show, had died in her sleep at 60 years old. And she was not the only cast member the world had lost. What happened to this crew after the cameras stopped rolling is a story that goes in directions most fans never expected. And some of it is genuinely hard to hear. The show that started in Spanish and conquered English television. Before getting into where everyone ended up, it is worth understanding what Operation Repo actually was and why it connected with so many people in the first place. Because the show had an unusual origin that most fans of the English version never knew about. It started as a Spanish-language program called Operation Repo, airing on Telemundo in October of 2006. The concept was straightforward. Follow a team of vehicle repossession workers in California's San Fernando Valley as they took back cars from people who had stopped making payments. The twist was that the people doing the repossessing were a family, led by Luis Pizaro, who had over a decade of real experience in the business. The show aired in Spanish, aimed at Latin American audiences, and had to compete for airtime against telenovelas and soccer broadcasts, which in that context is about as difficult as competition gets. It held its own. For a while, it was actually #1 in its slot. True TV noticed. They approached the team about making an English-language version, and that version premiered on March 31st, 2008. From that point forward, the show ran for 11 seasons and 286 episodes before concluding on February 5th, 2014. The format was simple, but it worked. Every episode followed the crew as they tracked down vehicles and dealt with whatever the owners threw at them, which ranged from crying and begging to full physical confrontations. There was a disclaimer at the start of each episode noting that certain names and details had been changed to protect the people involved. What that disclaimer was really telling viewers, though most of them did not catch it at the time, was that significant portions of what they were watching had been recreated and dramatized. The actual repossessions happened. The specific situations and confrontations were shaped for television. When this came out more clearly over time, it divided the audience. Some viewers felt deceived. Others pointed out that almost every reality show in this genre operates the same way, and that the core of what the show was about, the real business, the real family dynamic, the real personality clashes among the crew, was genuine regardless of how individual scenes were constructed. Real tow truck drivers who watched the show professionally tended to dislike it, noting that several things depicted on screen would be illegal in actual repossession work, but the people who watched it for entertainment largely got what they came for. The show ended the way the creators wanted it to. Lou's character staged a fake heart attack as the finale's central moment, which was the kind of dramatic, slightly over-the-top storytelling that had defined the show from the beginning. Whether you found that satisfying or ridiculous probably depended on why you had been watching in the first place. What the show left behind was something real, though. A bilingual audience that had genuinely connected with these people across 8 years of television. A family that had built something unusual in an industry where most reality show casts scatter the moment production wraps. And a set of individual stories that, in the years since the finale, went in directions that range from genuinely impressive to genuinely heartbreaking. The most important of those stories belongs to Sonia. And to understand what her death meant to people who watched this show, you need to understand who she actually was. Sonia Pizarro and what she actually brought to this show. Sonia Pizarro was Luis's sister, and she was the personality that the show eventually built itself around more than anyone else on the crew. That is not a small thing to say about a show that had her brother's name and face at the center of its marketing for years. But Sonia had a quality that is genuinely rare in television. She was exactly who she appeared to be. And that authenticity came through clearly enough that audiences responded to it in a way they don't always respond to people who are working harder to be likable. She was not trying to be liked. That was the thing. She was direct to the point that it sometimes made people uncomfortable, physically capable in ways that surprised people who made assumptions based on her appearance, and entirely unbothered by what anyone thought of how she looked or came across. She said in interviews more than once that she was not there for a personality contest. She was there to do a job, and she was good at it. And those two facts were the only ones that interested her. What that translated to on screen was someone who could hold a confrontational situation with real calm while everything around her was escalating. When things got physical on the show, Sonia was not hanging back. When someone tried to intimidate the crew, Sonia was usually the one stepping forward. She was also capable of genuine warmth in the moments between the confrontations, which is what made her interesting to watch across multiple seasons. She was not one-dimensional. She had dealt with health challenges before the show ended. In May of 2018, she suffered a stroke. She survived it, but the stroke affected her in ways that people close to her have acknowledged, even if the specific details were kept private. She continued to be publicly present after the stroke, connecting with fans on social media and maintaining a presence in the community that had grown up around the show. Then, on May 3, 2023, Sonia Pizarro died in her sleep. She was 60 years old. The cause of death was not officially disclosed beyond the basic circumstances. Every report that covered her passing noted that she died in her sleep, and most noted her history of the stroke 5 years earlier, though no direct connection was established publicly. The fan response was immediate and genuinely moving. Social media filled with people sharing memories of specific moments from the show, episodes they remembered watching with family, scenes that had stuck with them for years. The outpouring of feeling was the kind that only happens when someone has genuinely connected with an audience over a long period of time, not just been visible to them. Her husband took time away from social media after her passing to deal with the loss privately, which is the appropriate human response to losing a partner, and which also reflected that this was not a PR moment, but a genuine family grief. He later returned and has continued working in the entertainment space, credited on a project called Ride or Die. Sonia's death changed what a reunion or revival of the show would look like in a permanent way. The show without her would be missing its center, which is why almost every conversation about whether Operation Repo could ever come back has had to start with acknowledging what that loss means for the possibility. But Sonia was not the only member of this cast that the audience lost, and the second loss hit differently: Carlos Lopez and the loss that came first. Carlos Lopez joined Operation Repo as what the show framed as a new hire, which, in the context of a show where everyone was performing scripted versions of real situations, meant he was a newer addition to the cast rather than a genuine employee being documented in his first weeks on the job. His actual background was in acting, and his filmography before and after Operation Repo made clear that the show was one part of a broader career rather than the center of it. He had spent 3 years in the military before transitioning into acting. His credits included appearances in Captain America, The Winter Soldier, iCarly, CSI, Cyber, and American Made. These were not minor credits. They placed him in significant productions alongside well-known names, which is a level of success in the acting world that most people working in it never reach. On the show, he was often treated as more of a performer than a core crew member, which was accurate to how the production worked. He was not part of the original family unit that had built the business and the show around it, but he had presence on screen and the audience responded to him. In 2018, Carlos Lopez died by self-injury. He was 35 years old. The news was quiet at first, not covered with the kind of immediate, widespread attention that a more famous name might have generated. But within the Operation Repo fan community, it landed hard. He had been part of something that people cared about, and the circumstances of his death added a layer of sadness that went beyond the loss of a cast member people had enjoyed watching. His story is worth telling fully rather than quickly, because it reflects something real about how people who appear in entertainment productions are often seen primarily through the lens of their public work, with very little awareness of what they are carrying privately. Carlos Lopez, by all available information, was someone whose career was moving forward at the time of his death. His credits were accumulating. His opportunities were expanding. The gap between what his professional trajectory looked like from the outside and what he was experiencing internally is the kind of gap that tends to go unacknowledged until it is too late. The Operation Repo community mourned him. The broader entertainment press gave the story limited coverage. He deserves to be remembered as a person who built a genuine career out of real effort, who served in the military before pursuing something entirely different, and who was part of something that people still watch and remember years after it ended. Between Sonia's death in 2023 and Carlos's death in 2018, the cast of Operation Repo lost 2 of its members before any serious conversation about a reunion could happen. Those losses are the central fact about the show's current situation. The question of whether it could come back has to be held alongside the reality of who is no longer here. But there are cast members who are still working, still visible, and whose stories after the show ended went in directions that are genuinely worth knowing about. Luis, Linda, and what they built after the show ended. Luis "Lou" Pizarro was the founder of the whole operation, literally and professionally. He had been in the repossession business for over 13 years before the show existed, and the show grew out of his actual work, rather than the other way around. His retirement from the business was written into the show itself, happening in Season 11, Episode 6, which is a fairly unusual thing to say about a television character who was also the real person being depicted. After the show ended, Lou went through something that surprised a lot of fans who followed him on social media: a dramatic physical transformation. He lost over 100 pounds following gastric sleeve surgery. The change was significant enough that in 2014, when he stopped a real crime in progress near his home, the responding police officers did not recognize him. He had seen someone running from law enforcement and intervened, and the person he was known as from television was no longer immediately visible in how he looked. He has continued working in entertainment. His film credits include a father-son drama from 2015, and he has worked as both a writer and director on a project called Psychic Visions, released in 2023. That kind of behind-the-camera work reflects a shift from being in front of the lens to shaping what the lens captures, which is a natural evolution for someone who built a show from the ground up and understands how production works from every angle. Linda Pizarro, Sonia's niece, had been part of the show since its original Telemundo run, which made her one of the longest-tenured members of the cast in terms of her time with the production. Her role was different from the core repossession crew in that she played herself without being part of the physical confrontations that the show centered its drama around. She appeared, she was present, but she was operating at a slightly different level of involvement in the action. After the show, Linda also underwent a significant physical transformation, developing a fitness routine that she has shared with followers on social media. She is still listed as an actress and model, maintaining a professional presence in the entertainment space without having the kind of high-profile credits that would make her name immediately recognizable to someone outside the Operation Repo community. Both Linda and Lou losing significant weight around the same period after the show ended raised some eyebrows among fans who wondered whether the intense lifestyle of the repossession work, the schedule, and the stress of production had taken a physical toll that they were actively addressing once that environment was no longer part of their daily lives. Neither has said exactly that publicly, but the timing was notable. What is clear is that both of them maintained connections to the entertainment world rather than walking away from it entirely. The show was not a detour from something else for them. It was the thing they built, and they carried it forward in different forms once the specific format that had defined it for 8 years came to an end. The rest of the crew took different paths, and a few of those paths are genuinely interesting. Matt, Froy, and the rest of the crew. After the cameras stopped, Matt Birch was one of the most visually distinctive members of the Operation Repo cast. A large man with extensive tattoos who had the kind of physical presence that made confrontational repossession situations look somewhat more manageable from the crew's perspective. His background before the show was in professional wrestling, though his career in the ring was cut short by injury. He transitioned from wrestling into a commissioner and enforcer role with Vendetta Pro Wrestling, which kept him connected to the world of physical performance and audience-facing drama, even after he stopped competing. After Operation Repo, Matt continued working in entertainment in roles that reflected his particular brand of physical presence. His credits include work on Christmas with The Chosen, Holy Night, and a minor role in another production. One of his listed credits describes him in terms that he apparently found amusing enough to publicize, which tells you something about his sense of humor and his comfort with the more absurd dimensions of the entertainment business. Froy Pizaro, who had been Sonia's ex-husband during the show's run, brought a background to Operation Repo that was genuinely unexpected. Before joining the Repossession crew, he had worked as a makeup artist in Hollywood. His most notable credit in that field was A Beautiful Mind from 2001, which was a significant production that won multiple Academy Awards. The jump from creating film makeup to working repossessions on a reality television show is an unusual professional trajectory, but it reflected the kind of multi-directional career paths that people in the entertainment industry often navigate. Ron Tyrone Lee had arrived at acting after a football injury ended his career in the Arena League. His time on Operation Repo was brief, but it served as a launchpad that he used to pursue additional acting work. His subsequent credits included appearances in other productions, and like several of his former castmates, he maintained an active presence in the entertainment space rather than treating the show as a final stop. What connects all of these people, across very different post-show trajectories, is that the show clearly mattered to them in ways that extended beyond employment. The cast members who have spoken about Operation Repo in interviews and on social media have consistently described it with genuine affection, not the careful corporate warmth that people perform when they are contractually obligated to be positive about a project, but the kind of real attachment that comes from having built something with other people over a significant stretch of time. The show they built can still be watched. Most of the episodes are available on YouTube, and platforms including Pluto TV and the Roku channel carry the series for streaming. For new viewers discovering it now, and for longtime fans returning to it, the experience of watching it is inevitably shaped by knowing what happened to the people on screen after the show ended. Sonia is in every episode. That is both the gift and the weight of it. Operation Repo gave Sonia Pizarro a platform to show exactly who she was for 8 years of television, and fans still feel her absence 2 years after she passed. What does that say about the kind of connection a reality show can create when the people in it are genuinely, irreplaceably themselves? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. For more interesting stories like this, be sure to click on the next video that pops up on your screen. You never know what you'll discover next.